This is an origin reading for Lyran Pranayama. So that's not the usual code name that I receive. And I had no idea what pranayama was. So first it's coming in like pranayata and then like pranayana. So I'm Googling like what the heck is pranayana or pranayata, and up comes pranayama, which apparently is yoga practices for increasing your breath and learning to control your breath to increase your prana. Um, and then Lyran, obviously, is Lyra. And you did mention cat people during your questions. Okay, so I already surrounded us in light because I had to receive the code name from your guides. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into the crystals here. Oh, I've got a guide coming up. I think I have a couple of guides coming up actually. Okay, so the crystals that I have here, I have three crystals that I pulled here. I have obsidian. So obsidian is very good at absorbing energies and deflecting energies off of yourself, especially negative energies. Any black stone is really good for that. And I I just remembered I'm seeing you wearing a black stone in your picture. And so I pulled this. And then when I came up with your pictures, I noticed your picture. I noticed that you were wearing a similar black stone. I don't know what kind of stone that is there. Um, so it seems almost like you're feeling that a little bit too, that you should be wearing that. And then the last two that I have are both really for grounding. This is a geode. I really don't know very much about this geode at all. But I always feel like it really has to do with grounding. And a lot of times I feel a higher energy from it as well, like it's attempting to ground a higher energy down. So it's very connected to earth energies. I'm feeling some Native American energies. Um, and that's definitely specific to this reading because I don't normally pick up on that with that stone. And then I have my jasper, tiger's eye jasper sphere here. And this again really has to do with grounding, but it also has to do with cleansing out your aura and protecting your space. And also, it has a lot to do with your physical energy and being active and physical endurance, things like that. Okay, so those are the three crystals that I have pulled for this reading. Now I'm going to go ahead and drink some water and then tap into your guides. Okay, so I definitely have a Lyran guide coming up here. That was pretty obvious that that was going to happen just because of the code name that was coming through. Okay, but I don't feel like your origin is from Lyra. That's the first thing that this guide is letting me know, is that your origin is not from Lyra. Okay, you've had some Syrian lifetimes, or at least one. Anyway, you've had maybe a, a handful, not that many that I'm picking up on, but you've had a handful of Syrian lifetimes. Um, and it feels like kind of going back a ways. And there's also a connection to Atlantis that's coming up as well. There is a feeling of Atlantis right away as it is being destroyed. So the fall of Atlantis, there's a feeling of the fall of Atlantis. There's also a feeling that you've had a lot of kind of destructive lifetimes. It feels like this one is a bit easier from some of the past ones that you have experienced, where there's kind of normal ups and downs, but it's not something crazy like you're losing your whole city, and your whole life and everything around you and everyone around you is just in shambles, falling apart. Um, but it feels like you have had some lives like that. So it's not just one, it's not just Atlantis. I keep getting the feeling that you were a survivor in Atlantis, that you survived with some other people, and your guides just keep moving on. The Syrian lifetimes, it feels like there was definitely some war. War comes up a lot with Sirius. Um, Especially, I would say the Mer race in Sirius. Uh, hmm. Okay, but I don't really feel one race with you with Sirius. During readings, there's always two races that come up for Sirius again and again and again. There's this bird race that always comes in. I never hear of anybody really speaking of a bird race. There was one person who spoke to me about a bird race actually, and he had a connection to Sirius, and I kind of put the two and two together, but I don't think he even realized that they were Syrian. So nobody's really talking about that race, but it comes up a lot during readings. There's this bird race from Sirius, and then of course there's the kind of standard one that everybody speaks about a lot, which would be the Mer race, who live in the water. But they can also breathe on land. So they can breathe underwater, they can breathe on land. They're humanoid. And then you've had some Lyran lifetimes. Your guides aren't giving that much detail. They're just kind of they're kind of going everywhere. And there is kind of this theme of yeah, you grounding like a higher energy down. Okay, and also this theme of deflecting things out of your energy field. It feels like there are some old energies. Oh my gosh, they're reminding me. I completely forgot about this because I received your code name, and then took I went back out into the house. I took like a 20-minute break between now and this part of the reading. So I didn't even remember this at all. But as I was retrieving your code name, I started feeling the weirdest cords down my back. The back tends to hold a lot of cords. That is where we get our support from. And so a lot of times emotional attachments are there. People can have issues in their back if they have financial issues, but also people can end up with a lot of cords in their back because this is a place of support. So it can be financial support, it can be emotional support. So there are a lot of cords to people. Some of this has to do with past lifetimes as well. Um, where it feels like you are attached to things that happened. Um, okay, and also, oh, that's right. I was also playing sacral chakra music when I created the sacred space in the room before I got the code name. They were reminding me of that because completely forgot that too. But the sacral chakra tends to hold a lot of fear, and it tends to hold a lot of trauma. If it's holding negative energy anyway, that's the kind of negative energy that it tends to hold. And the sacral chakra is located in the lower back. It's located actually in the lower stomach, but obviously in the lower back as well. So there's a feeling like these cords have to do with people, these cords have to do with loss, they have to do with trauma. God, even some of this past life stuff that they're talking about, like um, Atlantis was a really long time ago, so I don't know if you would still have cords from. It feels like you do. Well, actually, that would make sense. A lot of people who lived in Atlantis when it fell have some really major like thought forms and things that they've held on to from that experience because in Atlantis, it was a very, very extremely positive place. Everybody was really connected. Everybody was really happy. Everybody was really fulfilled. And then this disaster happens, and everybody suddenly feels almost like they lose their ability to have the same happiness, to feel fulfilled anymore. So a lot of people that experience that lifetime tend to really hold on to a lot of energies from there. So actually, when I think about it, that really isn't that surprising. Ooh, I'm feeling my solar plexus too. And I feel like part of the reason this pranayama thing is coming up and the breath, the breathing, and all of that. Obviously, if that's the code name, then obviously that's a message in and of itself that it would be important to you for you to be thinking about doing breathing exercises and this type of yoga to help control your breath um, and almost stabilize your breath flow is what's coming in. But I feel the solar plexus, and it almost feels like it could even turn into a physical thing if it hasn't already. And the solar plexus is right above your sacral. So it's the upper half of your stomach. And I feel like I need to breathe more deeply. I feel like some of that is an energetic thing and not so much a physical thing yet. But this thing in your stomach, I definitely feel like either that started being a physical thing or that it could become a physical thing, that you need to be careful with that and that it's good to start doing some kind of exercises now. And again, part of this feels like from like traumatic energies that have built up. So it's really more coming from your sacral chakra. Also, your root chakra, I get a feeling of. Your root chakra has to do with grounding. If you have had a lot of experiences um, in other lifetimes, it could be this one as well. But it does feel like definitely other lifetimes for sure. If you've had a lot of, and again, your guides were already pointing to the fact that this, in comparison to a lot of those, maybe there's some ups and downs, but it's definitely a much better, easier lifetime. Not really better, we're learning through all of our lifetimes, but just in the sense that it's an easier lifetime than some of your past lifetimes. So that can tend to um, kind of mess up your root chakra for sure, because your root chakra has to do with grounding, it has to do with security in your physical environment. And so a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear can come from the root chakra having an imbalance. There can also be like this sense of abandonment or this feeling almost like the physical world just it doesn't quite fit you. You're not quite placed right in the physical world, and you can have a problem with attracting scenarios where you would really feel your best, your most optimal, um, physically even, but also in terms of who you're around and um, do you have friends who are really accepting of you, who really understand you, or just where you fit? Do you really feel like you're there and it's the place for you? This is something as well that your guides are bringing up that can come up with a root chakra kind of imbalance. So these are three chakras that they really want you to work on. These three lower ones, your root, your sacral, and your solar plexus. I definitely started feeling my heart chakra as well. So I feel like that's one to work on too, but that feels a little bit secondary because that really feels like it's coming from these other ones. Okay, there's a lifetime coming up actually where you were some kind of, I think a whale. I was going to say either a dolphin or a whale. Um, hmm. This feels more like a whale though, and it feels like you're a big whale. Um, and you're very conscious in this lifetime, and this feels like it was on Earth. It feels like it was in this dimension. Um, but this is a very aware lifetime. So this is not a lifetime that I would consider like a more animalistic lifetime. So, in other words, you're perceiving things in a more human way where you're aware of certain things that humans are more aware of. And definitely animals are very aware, but they are certainly aware in a different way. They process things very differently than a human would process things, whereas a dolphin and a whale, they're processing things not not is still in a much more innocent way than a human, but so they're not as corrupt. Obviously, they don't hold those types of emotions so much as a human would. In a lot of ways, they're actually much more evolved than a human. They're aware of a lot of spiritual concepts that a human really isn't so evolved yet with. So it feels like there's a lot of spiritual awareness, a lot of spiritual understanding coming from that lifetime. The thing about dolphins and whales is you have this combination of both, and that is really, really evolved. You have this ability as a human to be aware of things that are out of the present, um, but at the same time, you have this ability to be in the present and be extremely still. So you still have that animalistic, very present quality. An animal is extremely present. It's doing this and it's focusing on it. It's giving all of its attention to this one thing. And then it moves on to another thing. It's going to give all of its attention to whatever it is doing. An animal can sleep for hours, like it can lay down, and I don't understand sometimes how my dogs are not getting bored. Like a human needs to be having all of this stimulation, all of this stuff that they're doing, and a dog will just take walks and then it really they really don't do a lot sometimes just because of their owners who are busy, and I think they must get so bored, and they just have this ability to be content no matter what they're doing, be content in the present. So there's that ability with a whale and a dolphin. And then at the same time, there's this ability to really think of concepts that animals are not necessarily going to understand, or really care about, or process because of how out of the present it is. So they're very evolved. And they definitely think of things that a human isn't going to so much think about. So you have this lifetime. Your guides are saying that this is definitely a lifetime that is really going for you, where like you're soaking up a lot of positive vibrations from this lifetime. There's a lot of good, they're saying like karma, like there's a lot of good karma from this lifetime. that comes to you because you had all of this spiritual understanding, this spiritual awareness that you were really grasping. So it feels like that's something that you're more stepping into. So some of this awareness, it's like you're pulling it from certain lifetimes that you've had. I also feel like the reason that you were even able to have this whale lifetime, that experience, I feel like it's actually because you did have this connection to Sirius. And I feel like you were even able to have that lifetime in Sirius because of other lifetimes that you have had. This lifetime on Lyra, they're sending me a feeling of the Pleiades. They're also giving me a feeling of Centaurus or Alpha Centauri. Oh, geez. And there's another planet that they're giving me a feeling of, oh, what is the name of that? Um, geez. I might have to look up the name of that and then send it to you. Uh, but I'd be able to find that. I know what the name is, and it's just completely out of my head right now. Um, you've had like a lot of lifetimes. They're like mentioning a lot of different places. They haven't mentioned an origin yet. Okay, and then Earth lifetimes too. They're definitely sending me a feeling of Earth lifetimes. There's actually a feeling, um, there's actually a feeling that you started on Earth. That this is where you base a lot of your lifetimes from. But at the same time, you would still be considered a star seed for the reason that um, you're coming from all these other stars as well. You've had so many lifetimes in other places, and the point is that you go to these star systems and then you have a mission compiling your knowledge from these places. You're coming here and you are implementing it and you're putting that out to help shift the earth. So that's really the point of a star seed. It's also that you resonate with other star systems. You're bringing knowledge from those places here. A lot of times you're bringing a mission here. But it feels like right now, where you're at right now, it feels like your mission is more about just finding out who you are. So it's like this is part of your path right now. Um, and to really fulfill what your mission is, you're asking, do you even have one? They're saying, yes, you have one. Um, and you have a purpose, obviously, but you have a plan of all that really means is you have a plan of how specifically what you came in to bring from these other star systems and even from lifetimes here, this whale lifetime, for instance, definitely. Um, and so you have certain things that you want to bring in, and you want to do that through certain tools. So, in other words, I want to have this career, or I want to do this certain type of thing so that I can reach these people in this way, and so that I can shift the Earth's frequency overall um, by being here, by doing what I'm doing. But you're really not going to get to that point of understanding what those specific things are if you haven't gone through this rediscovering, reconnecting with who you are, with who you have been. There's a feeling from your guides all of a sudden like this Atlantean lifetime is really important. The Atlanteans were also connected to other star systems. They were not only human. So even with that, there's this connection to other planets, even with this Earth life that you've had here. But I don't just want to say this, that feels really inaccurate, like this one. It feels like there are multiple ones. It also feels like you've had some lifetimes in some other dimensions, but it actually feels like you've mostly stuck to this dimension of Earth. Although it does feel like you have been some being types, like the whale, for instance, it feels like where they could temporarily kind of see into another dimension or maybe even go into another dimension for a little while. It feels like they wouldn't even necessarily know that they were doing it, and then they would come back into this one. It feels almost like maybe they're swimming in the water, right? And maybe there's something that they need to avoid. Okay, maybe there is like a boat or something in this dimension where the propeller, maybe it's going to kill them or damage them, who knows, right? And or maybe there's a net, there's something that they can get caught in or damaged by. I mean, this is a big whale, so it would probably be something human that it might be damaged by. But so let's say that there's something that it really needs to avoid, and because of its higher vibration, it temporarily snaps into another dimension where this isn't there. And it looks the same. It's not going to seem to them like, oh my God, I've entered another dimension all of a sudden. And there's even a feeling from your guides that this happens to humans all the time, but not as much. So humans have this ability as well, but their vibration has to be really high, which mostly it isn't. And so it's like it just can't happen as much for a lot of humans. But for whales and dolphins, this can happen much more often. There's a feeling coming from your guides, like for humans, this most often happens as their children. There's also a feeling from them that sometimes for elderly people this happens more as well. Just because a lot of times they are in a more just relaxed, kind of slow pace. So it's just a different vibration. But again, they're really not going to be noticing it. And it could be the slightest thing, the slightest difference that you really don't notice. So this whale is going to be going through the water, and there's some net there, let's say, and it tries to get a fish from the net or whatever you want to say. Some whales eat fish, some don't, right? I'm just giving some random thing. It approaches the net, somehow it gets stuck in the net, right? So if it goes into another dimension where this isn't there, it's just going to continue swimming. It's going to be seeing virtually the same water. It's not going to understand that it's in another place, another dimension, but its higher vibration has allowed it to basically skip over that very much lower vibrational thing. So it was in its dimension and it basically skipped over it because it just doesn't match. But then it continues to stay in this vibration, and its purpose is really to send out a higher vibration into this one. So that's the reason that it continues to stay, even though it has the ability to go into a higher one and to stay there. Because the vibration that it's on is definitely high enough to reach that place, and it can maintain that vibration well enough to stay in that place. And there it can continue heightening itself, whereas here it couldn't really continue heightening itself. It can heighten itself to a certain point, and then it would have to stop if it feels to stay in this dimension, in this place, because this dimension is only going to support a certain level of vibration. So if you go so high, then you're going to just end up completely out of this vibration where you just don't stay in it anymore, where you really can't. But again, even that honestly might not be that noticeable. It might just seem like things are going really well for you. It would probably seem like what your guides are giving me the feeling of is it would probably seem like I am in the same place, or I'm in the same. Why are they saying it that way? Like, I am in the same shithole, but nothing's going bad anymore. So now it's a much more positive experience. So it seems like, oh, you were in this bad place. It doesn't seem like you've reached a place that isn't that one, that's different from that one. It's just all of a sudden the things that are happening in your life and manifesting in your life, the people around you, the places where you're going, the place that you live, whatever, everything is suddenly changing around you and becoming really happy and something that you are much, much more content with and that you're seeing in a very positive way. And it doesn't seem like you've gotten out of that shithole or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't seem like you've gotten out of this lower vibrational place. It's just going to seem like all of a sudden your life is changing. And things are going in this great way, in this really positive, good direction. Even though you appear to be in the same dimension that you are in. So it's like this inner thing kind of creates this outer explosion of positivity. But really, you're actually in a different dimension altogether. So your guides are just saying sometimes we don't understand, we don't realize when our vibration is changing so much that we're actually entering into a higher dimension, into a higher vibration, so much that we're entering into another place. Because everything around us, it starts to change, but we still observe it in this very linear way. It's not like Beam Me Up Scotty, where suddenly we are transported to another dimension holographically, and suddenly we're off the planet and we're in the spaceship. Like, I'm here. You know, it really, it doesn't seem that way. So your guides are saying to get to this place, to get to C, you're at A now. To get to C, you have to completely go through B. And they're saying it's like you're still kind of in A, and at the same time you're progressing through B, and you're going to end up like in B and C versus in A and B, if that makes sense. And then you're going to end up fully in C. So it's like you're still going to be having this kind of awakening still as you're figuring out these other things, what my mission is, what my purpose is, all these things. And then you're going to completely come into it where it just feels finalized, it's complete, it's done. And there are going to be a lot of changes around you at that point. Things are going to start changing really, really rapidly, and you're going to discover yourself your surroundings and everything being very different than they were at a fast pace. It's going to seem linear. It's going to seem like you're in the same place, but really you've gone into another dimension, is what they're saying. So this would be another dimension of Earth. So just to clarify, so you have had lives in other dimensions of Earth then, in other words, but they would be like really close together. Not like another dimension, in other words, like you are in a fairy dimension, and it's like a completely other place, and it is on Earth. It is a version of Earth. So that's the difference that I mean here when I'm saying that you have had lives mostly in this dimension and not so much in a dimension like that. Okay, it does feel like you may have had a few here or there, but it feels like mostly in these dimensions of Earth that all kind of appear similar. Okay, so thank you very much. Oh wow, that was quite the code name. Lyran Pranayama. Thank you very much for allowing me to do this reading for you. I truly hope that this benefits you. Thank you very much. Namaste.